Hello, everyone, and very warm welcome to the 2022 Zhongguancun Forum. Today, at the second SCO Countries Innovation Forum session, which is entitled Open Cooperation for a Shared Future, we have already discussed many important facets of the SCO region's future development. We have discussed how important open collaboration, business-to-business cooperation, deep understanding within the region can have an impactful future for the region at large. And as we talk about the SCO region, of course, a very important facet is youth and talent development. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization boasts more than 1 billion young people. And an important question for us to address has been, how do we develop talent? How do we help young people look forward to a more prosperous future? And how do we invest in their capabilities? And this panel is special to us. We are going to discuss talent development and youth entrepreneurship. And we have with us a panel who is young, dynamic, diverse, and who have a lot of practical experience empowering and enabling young communities within and beyond the SCO region. So let me warmly introduce our panelists. Firstly, we have Christy Zhao from China. Christy Zhao is founder and managing director at Rizzo Strategic Solutions. She is also chair and president of Viva Professional Network for Women and volunteers at Ladies Who Tech in Beijing. And her focus is obviously cross-border, cross-cultural business collaborations. We will talk more about it, but what is also very fascinating is that she will address a gender dimension, which is indeed critical. Then let me warmly welcome Victoria Koo, who is co-founder and CEO of SCOLAR Network, an organization I'm also very lucky to be affiliated with since 2018. SCOLAR Network has a very important mission, and that mission is to enable, empower, and impact youth in the SCO region. So far, they have expanded significantly and impactfully and are working on various projects to help connect young people in the region and to create innovative projects that are building gaps, bridges of understanding, and they are also helping young people think of more impactful ways forward in their careers. So welcome, Vika. And then let me warmly welcome Bhima Najika Lianage, who is from Sri Lanka. Oh, Vika is from Russia. So we have China, Russia, and now let's welcome Bhima from Sri Lanka. Bhima is the CEO of SirQ Technologies, co-founder Wonder Technologies. Bhima wears various hats, each equally impressive and each equally futuristic and impactful. What we are interested in understanding from Bhima is how his technology startups, how his incubators and how his work also, very importantly, recently on depression and how we can combat this, is helping young entrepreneurs, young enterprises think also about futuristic technologies. So how do we combat existing challenges? How do we, first of all, understand them, and how through his work we can address them? And last but not the least, from Afghanistan, we have Abdul Wahid Ahmedzai. Wahid is a serial entrepreneur. He is the founder of NHub and the Secretary General of Alumni Talent Alliance. Also a good friend. Wahid is playing a very important role in building the gap between the various policies and the various incentives that governments have and how young people, especially foreigners and also some Chinese, can benefit from whatever resources are available to them. Wahid is doing significant work in helping also better policies be conceived and implemented to empower young people. And I'm Ahmed Khan, Research Fellow at the Center for China and Globalization. It's a deep privilege for me to be moderating this stellar panel. And so without further ado, I think let's move on to our first panelist, Christy Zhao. Christy, I think for you, already we understand our audience understands that you are helping businesses from overseas do well in China. You're helping them understand the Chinese market. And that's obviously critical to the kind of bridges we want to create between cultures and help create synergy between regions, right? So your work itself is very important. So I think if you can briefly talk a bit about that, and also the very important gender dimension. Two of the initiatives you are part of are helping women, especially, think bigger, creating communities for women to have more confidence and pursue careers with confidence and with passion. So I think if you can briefly, in 5 minutes, discuss your work and obviously address the most important question today, which is how do we further develop talent and how do we inspire youth entrepreneurs to be more impactful?
Thank you, Zoom. I just wanted to say thank you so much for inviting me to be on this panel. It's a pleasure to talk to everyone right now. So I wanted to share what I do as a normal person on a day-to-day basis. So I run a Beijing-based strategic consultant agency. What do we do is we basically help the overseas technologies to understand the China market and also succeed in this market. So the industry that we're focusing on is semiconductor related, like artificial intelligence, robotic, whether it's a smart manufacturing or pharmaceutical. We also work with autonomous vehicle companies. Now, since last year, we're sort of expanding into the renewable energy area. We help majority of the company to do digital transformation as well as their ESG strategy framework. So this is basically what I do as within my company. And in terms of the two initiatives that I volunteer for, one is called Viva, Professional Women's Network. So what do we do is we're a membership network, and we gather all the women that it's in the executive level to come over together once a month and to share their experience from the professional perspective and encouraging more women, more younger generation to understand how it works in the industry and how can you balance between your work or your life, as well as how you improve yourself through the working environment. And the other initiatives that I'm volunteer for is called Ladies Who Tech. So Ladies Who Tech, I'm volunteer for the Beijing chapter, is across the country. You can find in Shanghai, Chongqing, Chengdu, and all the major cities that you will be able to find it, as well as some of the major cities overseas. So for Ladies Who Tech, we believe in encourage more women to discover their potential in the STEM industry. So we wanted to encourage the young women to understand there's nothing to be afraid of to get into the masculine worlds. And we encourage more women to get into the STEM field to really understand how you can challenge yourself and improve yourself and improve the whole society or industry within the whole theme. So I think the question you're asking, how to be more important, or how we can encourage the younger generation to get involved with this industry. I would say, as a female entrepreneur, I would like to say in the tech industry specifically, don't be afraid of, don't frame yourself. I would take it back, don't be afraid, but don't frame yourself into a specific situation or area. If you want to do it, just go ahead and do it. I think don't be afraid saying that, okay, this is a masculine industry, so therefore we're hesitating whether there will be inequality. I think right now we're encouraging more women or to really understand what is the tech, what is the tech industry really about. So it's not only about mathematics or quantum physics, it's also about the balance where we can bring as a woman. And also through the different networks, we're also trying to encourage more women to really understand and come through to ask us some questions. If you have anything you wanted to be improved from that perspective, we can do that as well. I hope that summarized.
Of course, that's very significant work that you're doing. And I think I actually did have the opportunity to attend one of the events that Ladies Who Tech organized. And I remember thinking, okay, we are in a very decisive period in history where people like us, relatively young people, have the ability to create platforms that couldn't have been fathomed maybe 2-3 decades ago. And we have the ability to reach out to people, audiences, and other people with a similar mindset in parts of the world that were inaccessible. So I think we can come back with a round 2 and think about, I might want to dig deeper into the impactful work that you're doing. And thank you for sharing. So now let's move on. Victoria Koo. Victoria, we know each other for so long. And I think, let me say that, as someone who started a career in international relations, I wouldn't have imagined that youth as a dimension, as a demographic, can have this much of an impact on our work. I mean, people from different careers, we are now thinking of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, seen as just an organization to conceive ideas and policies. Now we are thinking about the youth as such an important demographic to take that vision forward. So for you, Vika, if you can discuss what is SCOLAR about? I mean, where did the idea start? And specifically, SCOLAR's initiatives are about enabling young people in the region to improve their abilities, to gain exposure, broaden their horizons, and create projects. So can you talk a bit about the aspect of talent development within SCOLAR?
Thank you, Zoon. Well, it's a pleasure to be on this panel with really fascinating people that I'm really lucky and humbled to call friends. And this is all, again, this is also youth empowerment, right? Our panel is our panel itself is the example of how young people, experts come together to share insights and their views. So for SCOLAR, before we dive and before I tell about SCOLAR, I'd like to mention why do we focus on the SCO region to begin with? And SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, is the international organization that right now connects 26 countries, and the entire region has almost half of the world population. And among these people, there are more than 1 billion youth in their age between 18 to 35. And if we look at the dynamics of a lot of the SCO countries, especially member states, we'll see that countries like Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, Afghanistan, India have the medium age below 30 years old. And we've seen, especially with Uzbekistan, how the government is supporting young people in their growth and development. And I'd like to share a few examples with our hubs in a moment. So SCOLAR is the international youth community organization that is connecting these young leaders coming from the Shanghai Cooperation Organization region. And besides SCO, what is really important for us is that we are connecting our neighbors, and all of these countries that are part of whether SCO or communities that are part of SCOLAR, our different hubs, we're all neighbors, we're all neighboring countries, and this is the concept that has been there for centuries, being close to your neighbor. In the Russian language, there is a saying that you go for, when you ask for salt, you ask your neighbor, and salt is one of the most significant ingredients for people to live and survive. And SCOLAR's mission is to positively impact the lives of this 1 billion youth by 2050. We know it's a huge goal, and it will be really hard to target, but we aim at somehow positively touching the lives of these people, and we hope that this will bring a bit of more opportunities and hope to young people living in our region. And today we focus on 3 tracks of culture, education, and entrepreneurship. We've done quite a lot within the cross-cultural and educational field. We've run our projects, Model SCO, Agora. Model SCO is the educational project where we closely work with young people, with our delegates for 2 months. We talk about SCO, we talk about international organization, we talk about consensus, which is the main principle of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And it's really hard. It's hard to find decision when you have 8 and soon 9 countries on the table. and it's very hard to find consensus. And young people, through these projects like Model SEO, they're learning and they're gaining their skills, not only about SEO, the countries within the SEO, but also their soft skills, public speaking, academic writing, because every delegation is working on different position papers, and they're polishing it, and then we're working on declaration. So it's a lot of communication back and forth, and a lot of cross-cultural communication. Every month we do cross-cultural events, online, offline. There's something happening every week. Just last Saturday we had Model SEO in Uzbekistan, and that is by our candidate hub in Tashkent. So SCOLAR has built different teams, volunteering, nonprofit teams based in different cities of the SEO countries. And today we have 8 countries and 11 teams in different countries, including because today we have Wahed from Afghanistan, so we have a Kabul hub. We have 3 hubs in Pakistan, and Lahore, Islamabad, and Karachi. We have Beijing and Shanghai. We don't have a hub yet in Sri Lanka, but we hope that this will happen soon. And with Model SEO in Tashkent, for example, we've seen this is how we see through the hubs, how young people and what is the dynamic. And what are youth interested in those countries? And for example, in Tashkent, the same we worked together on building a hub with the University of World Economy and Diplomacy, and this is a pretty famous university that a lot of the diplomats graduated from. And we've seen with this specific university that students who are a part of this university have also just recently founded a youth diplomacy club. And this initiative was mentioned by the president. We work with the Zhongguancun Forum again. We've invited the Ministry of Innovation of Uzbekistan, and the minister himself, the deputy minister, the entire team is around 30 years old. So we've seen a lot of initiatives within Uzbekistan and how the country is really trying to give more opportunities to young people, both on the governmental level, within entrepreneurship, and also build systems like IT Park, which is similar to Innovate, the co-organizer of this event, where young people are mostly leading all of the initiatives, and they're incubating the projects using all of the available resources within the government and VCs. And because a lot of the team members have also studied abroad, so they also understand the international perspective. And we've seen with Kabul, for example, it's really one of my favorite hubs, close to my heart. Honestly, not because Wahed is on the panel, not only because of that, but so Kabul hub and Afghans, they're very close to each other, and that hub in Kabul pays a lot of attention to girls' education and to empowering girls to study, and we discuss these opportunities. With Pakistan, we have 3 hubs in Pakistan, and we can see how active young people are. We have different dynamics in Lahore, Islamabad, and Karachi, but all together we came to host and hold this initiative campaign called United with Pakistan to help with our little efforts on flood relief campaign, where we have organized a series of events, and Zoom is, you've been just a very important part of this campaign, and we're looking forward to the event in the Embassy of Pakistan to China that I would like to invite everybody to. So I'm not going to take more time, but it's just taking all of the time. But to conclude, I just want to say that young people are really action-oriented. And before, I would say that youth need to take initiative to start to do something on the ground. But today, I also understand that not only take the initiative, but also leverage the institutional support. And I think Wahed will talk more about this, and really understand the policy. And this was what happened with the floods, right? We talked how young people can understand more on the climate policy, so they can advocate for what we believe in. So I'll stop here.
Thank you, Victoria. No, I think the examples, especially you gave about how SCOLAR has evolved, the different initiatives. One important thing that we recognize being part of these communities or having exposure to these communities is that young people are not just recipients. They have the ability to help each other, empower each other, like Christy, also your initiative on women, empowering women. And same when we talk about youth, it's similar, that if a group of young people believes that we need to address this challenge, or we can come together and create a community that can support each other, we can play that role of not only leveraging institutional support, but also encouraging it, right? So I think here, the role that SCOLAR is playing is also important because it's bringing big ideas, broad concepts to the forefront to daily life. So what is the Shanghai spirit? How does cooperation create synergy? We see that in a microcosm, and that can have a ripple effect. So thank you so much. Another thing I'll just quickly add is that these kind of cross-cultural projects are also helping reduce misunderstandings and helping people know each other, realize that we have so much more in common. And in that sense, making consensus, which can be harder today, make it easier tomorrow when we have more relatability. So thank you. We'll come back with a round two. So let's move to our next panelist, Bima. Bima, you are a scientist, you're an inventor. You are also, your work over the last many years, I think I'll leave for you to introduce that to our guests, but it's been geared towards using technology, enabling technology, encouraging entrepreneurs who are thinking of social impact, who are addressing issues, social issues as well. And how is it that people who would be self-seeking, I think the common thread in our panel today, in our discussion today, is to nurture, is to create synergy. And it's also think of more impact-oriented initiatives and technologies and platforms and ideas, right? So from your perspective, if you can talk a bit about your work, how you are helping empower entrepreneurs and also encouraging them to think long-term, and what further can be done to help this trend, given the current situation we find ourselves in, various new recent challenges.
So thank you so much for having me in the panel. And so like Zoon mentioned, so I've been in China for past 15 years, like as a scientist and an inventor. And with over many papers, like academic articles, patents, and like, impacting quite a lot of Fortune 500 companies, building technologies around it. What I've noticed for the past 3 years, where I'm mainly focused on right now, is mental health, right? Because the reason is that I came to a point to understand that I should be building products or spend a lot of time to look at new cutting edge technologies like deep learning and machine learning and apply it for like building cost effective diagnostic tools, because that way we can actually kind of very early on realize that like if people are sick, and then get them the help that they need, because that helps us to build like a more happier, more joyful, like a resilient community. Because as what Sue mentioned, it's really important to understand and overlay everything that we know into the current context. So we need more during the pandemic in Kenya. So as a scientist and inventor, my next step was actually like become an investor. So I set up like my fund in Kenya, in Nairobi. So during pandemic, we helped like 13 companies raise $3.3 million with the help of like, World Bank and UN Habitat. So basically from Singapore, we are working with the best universities there, building the Singapore Deep Tech Alliance. I work there as a mentor to scout technologies that are really impactful and help them to like, build. In Sri Lanka, work with like, the Sri Lankan Institute of Nanotechnology. We take graphite from the mineral form and like convert into graphene and build sensors and other different applications and technologies in water filtering, in diagnostic sensors to like, clothing and different type of like, applications. So one of the common lines I want to like, apply and thread here is that technology is really quickly evolving, and it's evolving at like much more faster rate. And then as youth, we can actually decide what do we do with it. So for example, like, deep learning can be applied to build a recommender system, or else like build stickiness in applications like TikTok or like, video consumption applications where it mines your attention and sell you ads, versus like, you can actually use it to build protein folding, or else like understanding cancer, or like, creating precision medicine, or like quite a lot of different applications, right? So the question is that the same technology is kind of like a two-sided sword, where that you can use it for either making the human generation moving forward, or else like, we can use it to keep at where they are. So interestingly, we need to really think what is the current context. The current context is like post effects of pandemic. We are looking at a society where a majority of the people are going through either the countries are going through recession, companies are like, economy is not really good, and then opportunities are like, lacking quite a lot. So this creates fear, this creates anxiety, this creates like a lot of problems for like, youth to even think about long-lasting or long impactful things, right? So the question right now is that, are we driving the youth towards projects that are where you see the dollar today, or else like, are we driving the community towards building more technologies and solutions where you see the dollar tomorrow? For example, topics like climate change, right? You can't build an app and solve it in a week, or else like, clean water, or else like any sustainable development goals. Whatever the things that we are doing in the first 2-3 years, they are like, just a mere patch to just like, solve the problem or just cover it a little bit. But how can we build more long-lasting solutions? For example, it's like teams or youth to be inspired to be like, running a company for 20 years to solve something. For example, like, mental health or depression, or like, clean tech, anything that is the company is supposed to like, run for 20 years, at least till like, you see a significant impact that you're doing on a larger population. So right now, with whatever going on right now because of economic crisis, etc., like venture capitalist funds are like freezing down, and like, there's not a lot of money in the market. Like big corporations that who are willing to do partnerships are like, really having a risk aversive strategy, so that there's not a lot of budgets in innovation or anything on that side. So what you really need to look at right now is that you need to have a very survival mechanism. So anyone that who actually is supposed to work on long-lasting applications, they need to survive today. So, but this is also the dilemma that we are having, because anything that's like worth investing in is not like a consumer fast-growing internet company, which is like basically this whole fails fast approach actually works only on the internet consumer businesses. It doesn't really work on any other thing that really matters. So because of this thing, like scientists, entrepreneurs, like, are they going to be bounded in labs to writing research papers, or else like, how can they survive and like take these cutting edge breakthrough technologies and giving it to the masses while surviving and keeping like, the economic like, implications in mind? Right. So I would say that this requires different type of inspiration. It's just like for people to like really focus on long, big, huge problems, like, things that are like, extremely impactful, let's say like climate change, and we are going to keep on working on it in a more lean way. So rather than just like, go all in and like, going very crazy. So I think the conversation I would like to have or give like, my insight point is that how can we have resilient mindset for problem sets that are really big, keeping in our mind that it's not going to be an easy year. Like it's not been an easy 3 years, but it's going to be much more. So how can you be mentally more resilient, and then again keep on working on things that really matter with the support of communities and people together? So
we will come to that in round 2, because I think this is the critical question based on obviously very insightful, in-depth observation. And what kind of first of all, you point out what kind of mindset, what kind of technologies do we need if we want to address the challenges we face, right? And if young people discouraged or back with the mindset of seeing the dollar today, they cease to look forward to a future or to invest in it. They cease to have an optimistic outlook about the future. Then we will suffer collectively, because we will probably miss out on many technologies that can help us address challenges of today. So Bima, we'll come back to what possible solutions can help switch the mindset or to encourage long-term thinking and deeper thinking on the part of young scientists and entrepreneurs. Wahid, So, of course, I mean, I think a lot of our panelists, Vika also mentioned your work. I think one of the questions, you have lived in China for so many years. You are someone who for years has helped communities, helped entrepreneurs find better opportunities. You are also helping young talent, with foreign talent. This was another understanding I have. Foreign talent in China leverage the policies, leverage the opportunities that are available to them. So first of all, if you can briefly talk about the importance of developing talent, how you are in this career, and a little bit about what are the needs moving forward. What direction should policies and youth be going in to be able to create more impactful, more dynamic talent pool that can help address the challenges we foresee?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's both an honor and privilege to be in this panel and talk about the topic, which is both a passion and a profession. I've been living in China for the past 8 years, and during those past 8 years, I was lucky enough to start multiple businesses and also lead several communities. And one of the things that happened during those past 8 years that I realized our understanding and perception of entrepreneurship and youth development has totally changed. From the beginning to building like financially stable ventures, to going to social entrepreneurship, to right now, youth entrepreneurship represents collective action towards solving critical challenges. So as our perception toward entrepreneurship and toward the society changes, the cultures, the frameworks, the policies, the infrastructures, all that we have needs to have a drastic change to meet the demands of the society, right? Why I'm saying that, like, if you compare it to 15, 20 years ago, all you needed to start a business was sit down in your garage and write some codes, and then you're able to create an application which can be good enough to be monetized, a scale, or you can build like, an e-commerce store. All of these were different types of entrepreneurship. But right now, the barrier for innovation and entrepreneurship is increasingly getting higher, because the challenges that we face, it needs a lot of discussion, it needs a very high level of skills, and it needs edge-cutting technologies to be able to deal with it. And a lot of the youth are not able to have access to the right tools, the right information, the right resources, so they can utilize those to create these ventures. So one of the things that I really I think is like, what we need to do is change our perception of entrepreneurship and see entrepreneurship not as an individual task, but as a collective action of a group of community that are trying to focus on certain aspect or on a specific topic and trying to come up with solutions, a diverse spectrum of solutions to deal with this. And in order to do that, the first thing I think from the government side, and that's one of the things that Chinese government has been very active, is building the right infrastructure in terms of providing the right kind of resources and providing the right kind of spaces for you to get involved. But at the same time, we now need to also think about how we can change the way that we used to incubate entrepreneurship back then and now, right? Right now, what we need to do is focus much more on the skill gap rather than like before, we were focusing much more on financing and trying to accelerate the growth of companies to go quickly to the next stage so we can see how it's going to go a scale. But now it's much more focusing on how we can close the skill gaps for youth so they can work on some of these critical challenges and try to have an approach of like open incubation where we can help them connect with all these relevant stakeholders so they can create this product or this solution, right? So that's one of the biggest changes that I have been seeing for the past few years. And despite right now, I see this transitioning happening more and more often with, for example, CIC, the company corporate incubation models, and also even a lot of like big institutions, namely like All China Youth Federation. They recently launched an action plan, which they were hoping youth can come and pitch ideas, right? But just by pitching ideas, all they can do is pitch an idea. To make those ideas come to reality, those foundations need to mobilize a huge, and I would say like a very different resources to be able to make sure that these youths are always connected to this, and these youth have enough mentorship, resources, information, and capabilities to make it into a solution. And then they also need to provide them the right ecosystems and the right platforms to maintain these projects are sustainable, these projects are continuously contributing to the society. So if I have to summarize, I think one is we need to change our perception of entrepreneurship and revive the culture of innovation in communities, and innovation through dialogues and innovation through sharing. The second thing that we need to focus on is trying to make more transparency when it comes to sharing information, and also focus on capacity building and training, which is a big chunk of youth development. And then the third one is building the right platform to A, incubate them, B, also sustain them. Especially going forward, what we are witnessing is like this big transition in every aspect of economy. For example, we are focusing much more on the project economy. So we will need a lot of youth to be able to create their own projects. That's a huge demand exists over there, how we can mobilize a huge chunk of our population, our youth population, to have enough skills to create projects and utilize the project economy to drive the impact in their societies, right? But when they're creating the projects, it means we need to be able to enable every single talent to have enough skills of a team and have a mindset of a company, but at the same time work with a network of resources to be able to create those impactful projects. That's I would say is like the biggest change we are seeing. And what we are trying to do at AT Alumni Talent Alliance is we are trying to encourage governments to invest much more. Because now we see, since the barriers are very high, the payoffs will take quite some time. We need to invest a lot of time and energy in closing the skill gaps so we can create the impactful projects. So then we can actually see the rewards and reap the rewards of it. So for advocacy part, I think from our youth side is we need to focus much more on how we can focus much more on closing the skill gaps and improving overall capabilities of talents in order to create impact, rather than expecting individual entrepreneurs to think about idea, to figure out everything all by themselves, or just by, by providing funding, we're able to solve all of those problems.
Right.
That mindset needs to be changed. And hopefully we will, through these kind of discussions, we're able to build this new culture of collective action, collective innovation, and innovation through dialogue.
And collective benefits from that, obviously. I mean, I think, Vahid, it's so important what you discussed, because a lot of times governments, policymakers, they might see investing in young talent as a cost, just as a cost, but it's actually a very critical, vital opportunity. It's an opportunity if we are able to tap into, so young people have the passion, like even Bima mentioned, I mean, they want to contribute something. We, after decades, have a dynamic youth that's thinking impact instead of just creating opportunities individually, young people who want to address the SDGs in whatever way they can, depending on their field. So if policymakers and if the resources meet them halfway, it's a win-win. And I think another aspect is that you also, when we think about the Belt and Road Initiative, the GDI, the concept is the same. I mean, how can we collectively build mechanisms, also have open conversation, dialogue between countries, but between young people and policymakers? What is the way to address the challenges that we are facing? So what you also mentioned, it reminds me that there are people developing curriculum now from the school level to help young people think about technology, become more comfortable with being innovators. And once you have a mindset shift and an open attitude from a very young age, we can probably accelerate this trend, make it more scalable. So I guess we can discuss more of this in round two. We have a few minutes left, very, very few minutes left, a brief roundup. So we have Christy, who talked about her business that is helping cross-country, cross-cultural, cooperation and also gender. Victoria, who is working on very practical projects to help youth in the SEO region develop skills, understand the region, and also create bridges of understanding. Bima, who is a scientist, an entrepreneur, he's an innovator, and how scientists can be encouraged to think of impact-oriented initiatives and connect and how policymakers especially can encourage young people, young entrepreneurs to continue that mindset. How can it be scaled? And Vahid, you talked about policies, how they can be leveraged, and what is the new mindset shift that we observe, and how can we benefit from that? How can the right policies come into shape? So I will ask one question to all of you. You, in your capacities, I think it's very clear that each of you are working in a field in a way, that is your passion. Like Vahid rightly put it, it's also your passion, right? And you're thinking how much impact possibly can be made in the field that you are passionate about, and that's your expertise. So all of you, the same question: how can more talent in your specific field be nurtured? How can we improve the current situation? Perhaps you can point out possible initiatives that can make your vision, your work more scalable, or possible, maybe policies that can help more young people benefit from the opportunities that, because of your work, young people are. So maybe Christy, you can go first. How can we enable more talent to be driven, to contribute, and especially in your case, more women?
I think from my aspect is that from my own perspective, which is my company, so we will recruit a lot of interns that is currently an undergrad, and encourage them to really understand what technology work really is, and what kind of how technology is very different, whether it's a software or hardware, and where their interests led to them. So we sort of wanted to make an impact from there and make them as more comfortable as possible. And from the community level, is the reason that we create a different community like Viva or Ladies Who Tech is because we wanted to influence people from a different aspect and different age and different level. So from Viva, we wanted to influence the younger generation to really understand how they can define themselves or find themselves through their professional path. And then we wanted to encourage the younger women to really understand, like you're working, it's not about making money for your house, for the meal, but it's also for, if that's what really you like. Like why you need to do it. And then we also have a different mentorship that can mentor through all of their career throughout the year. So we'll have a different conversation.
I'll cut you briefly because I'm interested in also knowing how do young women come up to you or they apply? There is an application process. Do you identify certain sectors? Because especially for young women listening to this event, watching this event, how could they benefit from your platform? If you can also mention that in your remark. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. Thank you so much. So what do we do is everyone can look us up, Viva Professional Women Network. There's always a way to find us, to reach out. You can email us. We're always we'll have an event once a month, and Ladies Who Tech, also you can look us out. We have several events throughout the months. So for Ladies Who Tech, we're much more focused on the younger women crowd, and for Viva, we're focusing on women that already are throughout the mature level of the career life. So they wanted to sort of to do something different and to find a meaning throughout their professional life. So I think when you go through those websites, or you're going through WeChat, if you have one, if you don't, look us out from the website as well. So you will be able to find how you can reach out to us, what kind of event we're hosting on a monthly basis, as well as we're also recruiting volunteers and interns as well. So you can look out how you can participate, and then maybe find job opportunities through there. We also have amazing mentorship to lead everyone out. So I think those are the ways that you can reach out through the community level. But from my company level, we constantly post work opportunities through LinkedIn. So you can reach us out from Resolve Strategic Solutions. If there's intern opportunities that you're interested, majority of the focus that we have on, it's towards a high tech, sort of like a pioneer tech, because we do a lot of basic research work. We analyze a lot of data, so you sort of need to have a little bit of experience as well. And we also do have senior staffs that can train you throughout the process. If you're not really sure you want to get into the STEM industry, feel free to reach out to us. You can definitely try it out because we're a consulting agency, so we kind of have our horizon throughout different industries. So you can have a close understanding of what they really do, whether that's the industry that you wanted to focus on. So I guess that will be something I will summarize is don't be afraid and be proactive and reach out to the community that is nearby you and speak up.
Thank you, Christy. Wonderful. I think I remember when I mentioned one of the events that I attended, and I was thinking, I wish we had this 10 years ago when I was in school and university. We are looking for mentors, but we are looking for mentors who are not 40, 50. I mean, you need people who have an understanding of how fast things have moved forward, right? So having these networks, having these communities can be transformative for many young people in their careers, and especially women. We need to make a proactive effort for women. Victoria, I think I think the same question, of course. I mean, how SCOLAR has already scaled intensively, impactfully, and also very effectively. I think 2 years ago was when the first hub, a foreign hub in another SCO country started, and today we have these hubs really, transforming, evolving, being impactful in parts of the SCO region that wasn't familiar with the SCO at all. So a little bit about how is SCOLAR how SCOLAR has scaled and what further can be done. I think I'm also interested in that a lot of times there's youth in our part of the world that doesn't have access to even universities, even proper schooling. I mean, we in the SCO region are mostly developing countries. How do we reach the relatively less reachable, if not the unreachable, through a platform like SCOLAR?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sun. Well, I'll be short. I think the most important part is to actually leveraging, as I mentioned before, work with the institutions and local NGOs and local organizations, because it's impossible to be able to reach out to everybody. But what we can do is through the work with the hubs, we can create a little bit of the social impact locally, and we can understand more the needs. In order to help, first, we need to understand what are the needs of people. And this is something that we're learning, and I'm personally learning every day through working with the hubs and talking to them and getting to know them. And I have to admit that people that we are getting involved at this point within SCOLAR are mostly university or young professional graduates. So this is not very local or as local as we would like to go, but this is the first step. So we get to know young people in these countries and region first. We work with institutions and we work with the government. And I think going back to your question on what could be done best or what is something that could really help in our work is more policies, strategies, and support on the institutional level that is especially supporting international and local youth initiatives. If both on the kind of scaling level and advocacy level, that is something that will really help us to get better. And that's why we're working a lot with the universities at this point for the hub's establishment.
Thank you, Vika. And I think also, like you mentioned, the month-long campaign that SCOLAR organized with the Pakistan Embassy. I mean, this is another way to realize that this community, proactive, committed, passionate people from such diverse countries, they really care about causes, about people within the region and beyond. I mean, they want to contribute. So SCOLAR as a platform has helped young people in the region contribute. So I think that's another way to reach out to communities that can benefit from the opportunity that SCOLAR is providing so many youth. So thank you. Bima, for you, I think there is your work is obviously you work very closely with Chinese companies, Chinese policies. You are helping entrepreneurs much beyond China. I think I'm interested that how how have you made this network? I mean, how is your work so diverse in a way that you're working with entrepreneurs who are thinking long term, who want to contribute to impactful solutions by having a futuristic perspective? How is that across borders? Maybe that can encourage more entrepreneurs to think, to have more confidence working with partners overseas. And another thing, how do we make your idea scalable?
So I think like this two-part question, right? So the first part is like basically when I came to China, like let's say 15 years ago, so the Chinese technology industry was like, just started to scale, right? So within that 10 to 15 years, we've seen like, how fast the technology is like, scaling in terms of kind of figuring out like base and then again kind of making it scalable that the service can be used by millions of people to just like make their lives like, much better, right? So and then this scalability, or else like building technology that helps people, building technology that like, reaches to like mass community. So this is also an art and a skill. So this knowledge that we've developed by living in China and like working with many industries is extremely useful when we are like looking at entrepreneurs from other markets, right? For example, there are business models that work in China that can be like replicated in like, developing countries, and then the good lessons that has been like learned by here can be shared with them. So it's more on like technology transfer, knowledge transfer, this area, and mentoring. Because if you go to like, Google and type like show me a last mile delivery solution, all the startups that you see there is like, English, right? So for example, the Chinese content or the Chinese startups or the technology companies, they're not searchable on Google. So that there is a huge information misgap that is happening for entrepreneurs that are searching from outside, because if they don't speak Chinese, they won't have access for the successful use cases here. There are amazing Chinese companies that have like really good business models and really good technology solutions that are completely unreachable from the outside, because most of the content is published and like, like attended in China in Chinese language, right? Yeah. So as cross-border agents, what we can do is to take these success stories back into our communities and show them that like for example, like Uber, there's this counterpart that Didi, but in here you can see these are the functions, these are like, the models that they're using to help like, people in really good way. For example, you can see that a simple application of integrating AI where you can just, rather than typing the address, you can just like speak and say that where do you want to go, gives like, drivers that who have not high literacy to drive a cab, right? For example, you don't know how to write something, because your language is not really good, but still you can speak the address and the technology takes care of that so that you can actually still make a living by using the same platform. So that feature is a really amazing feature that is not like, found in the other applications in the taxi companies around the world. So for these are like, stories and powerful points that I say that the West or like, the outside of China needs education. So when you are telling these stories, like, or else giving these use cases, like, for mentoring or like your sharing sessions, they actually have insight about the amazing things that are happening in China. On the other hand, I would like to say that basically it is very important for us to like, really think that how to build like, resilient entrepreneurs. I want to get back into that particular point is because entrepreneurship has now really become something that like you build a company to solve a problem and you can be a millionaire, like, in the end of the day, like, that is kind of the reason, or like, I can be free, I don't have to go to a job type of mentality. But the reality is that like, your time would be taken away from you, and most unhappiest people I've ever met in my life are actually entrepreneurs. So I've not met like very happy entrepreneurs in my life.
You have to explain that in a part 2.
Yeah. So but amount of effort that is required to build like, mental and physical resilience, building a company and like, going towards like, a very sophisticated goal. The bigger the goal is, if you put your goal as climate change, like, like for startups, the entrepreneurs have to go through a lot of like, boundaries and hurdles, like Wahid was mentioning, like, it's not only about like, you building a company, you need to really understand policy, you need to understand a lot of different things and do meaningful impact. So I think the other part that is extremely important is where that how to build this consensus around like, entrepreneurship, like why you become an entrepreneur, why talent should be motivated towards becoming entrepreneurs, need to get like, to have a much more broader conversation, right? For example, that if you look at companies that are in different areas of the world, the amount of money they raise is completely different, or the idea to become like a unicorn is also completely different. For some companies, it really matters to build find a social problem that is really big for their location or their area, and come up with a really good solution for that, and be happy by solving that problem. So it might not convert your company into unicorn or $1 billion valuation, but it doesn't really matter. Companies are not built to build into $1 billion valuation. Their companies are built to solve very impactful problems in a really good way. So I would say that this whole concept of entrepreneurship around that, really addressing a problem on the head and create enough value for the people around that, should be the definition of entrepreneurship. But because the success of the company and the amount of value that you generate financially is actually a byproduct of how really good that you're solving the problem. So these things you get really talk through. For example, if you say social impact projects, right? So if you look at any fund that is giving out money for social impact, the check sizes are drastically low than normal venture capitalists money, right? So really, even though no matter how much we talk about impact, the reality is that the budgets are not enough merely for social entrepreneurs to really tackle that. So these are the things that to go and solve the problem with reality in your mind, that it's not going to be, so that be mentally and resilient.
Don't glamorize this, right? The point is, entrepreneurship has been glamorized. It's like if someone becomes a singer or a guitarist to become famous, you have to love the process of singing or playing the guitar. It's just like that. You have to love the process. It should accelerate you to solve this problem. And I think, Bima, I wish so much we had more time, but we need to also understand, I think both for Christy, Victoria, and for you, the points you have addressed, it's important to understand how to cultivate this mindset. Of course, one is mentorship, where people are passionate, but they just don't have access or they don't have the right understanding. But how do we also cultivate the mindset that people are thinking longer term, people are passionate about addressing the challenges like SDGs through different avenues, right? How do we nurture a generation that cares about this over just making it big and making money? And on that, I think let's loop in Wahid. Wahid, also, I mean, I think my last question for you, because we've understood how can we make entrepreneurship or talent, generating and inculcating and encouraging talent scalable as well. But from your perspective, I think there's also the two ideas, like the Belt and Road Initiative and the Global Development Initiative. And a question mark is that how are these bigger initiatives, these broader ideas, helping entrepreneurs when it comes to policies made here in China, here in Beijing? If you can talk a bit about it, and a little bit that how are youth from the region, from other countries, how are they able to benefit further? So just quickly, briefly, and then we'll have to wrap up.
I think the Belt and Road Initiative and the Global Development Initiative, one of the key purposes it has is it's much more like a blueprint. It teaches or allows entrepreneurs to understand where the society is going toward. Just the concept of making a better, more sustainable, more healthier world for us is now the biggest opportunity when it comes to entrepreneurship. In trying to make Belt and Road practical, applicable, and making it happen at a very local level in itself is the biggest entrepreneurship opportunity out there. But the way that we need to see how we can utilize these big platforms, for example, Global Development Initiative, Belt and Road, SEO, is what we need to do is two things. The first thing is we need to come up with better frameworks to exponentially and meaningfully increase their impact. And how we can do that is by compartmentalizing, by making it much more focused on a specific topics. So for example, if it's like with Global Development Initiative, let's talk about poverty elevation. What were the good practices? How we can use the practices that China had for poverty elevation, for sustainability, for agriculture, and we can exchange or share those technologies and resources with entrepreneurs from other countries so they can utilize the same resources and create that. So one would be is building better frameworks to exchange, to share resources, technologies, and ideas. That would be the first thing. The second thing is, once we are creating these frameworks that are encouraging exchanges between different regions, different countries in terms of youth entrepreneurship, well, we need to build the accountability system that can follow through. A lot of the times what we see is that we have a lot of amazing initiatives being in place, but because the lack of following through when it comes to making sure that these support goes to the right people, to the right team for a longer time, and sustain their projects, especially their social projects, to really, grow to become achieve its mission. I think accountability is extremely, extremely crucial. These are the two things that I would really
still be, I think, so Wahid also, how do you create an environment where people are not afraid of making mistakes? So entrepreneurship is about losing a bit of inhibition, being a bit, less risk averse, and thinking out of the box, right? So at one point you need accountability, but you also need to encourage people to, to expand, to not be afraid to fail. Without that, we wouldn't have the best ideas flowing, right?
Accountability goes on the institution level. Institutions should be accountable for making sure that they provide the right framework and the right platform for you to test, try, fail, and redo again. But for the youth, all they need to have, to see these big initiatives, global development initiative, Belt and Road Initiative, as frameworks, and use these as frameworks and try to use them as a sandbox and create their beautiful castles and impactful projects within these sandbox. So that is my understanding. And what the institution, in terms of accountability, they need to subsidize more training, they need to provide more resources, and they need to create open incubation model. Or the concept of it is basically try to not only give them the capacity, but also help them connect with the markets, provide them industry support, and really try to take all the risk away from entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs can specifically work on ideas. We should take care of their funding. We should take care of their policy. We should take care of all the administration cost and trouble and pressure away from them so they can be focused on what it matters. And we should build the accountability systems to take all the pressure and provide that inclusive and supportive culture and ecosystem for them.
That supports their creativity. Right. Yes. So I think exactly. And I think one of the things is that's I've seen in some of the projects or even some seminars, when they're presenting teams that will probably later be chosen to incubate. One of the conditions at times is that they need to be from 3 different countries. For instance, if we're talking poverty alleviation, agriculture, technologies, then some conditions like that, some prerequisites like that can also encourage more creativity and to help us reach and aspire to, in a better way, fulfill the mandate or the concept of the frameworks of GDI and BRI, for instance, right? And I think here we also have SCOLAR network. Some of the projects have been between hubs of different countries. They may have never met, but the fact that they're able to create a project between countries is a new experience, and it's probably much more impactful, a new vision, compared to what one country individually can achieve. So with that, I think there's a lot more that we would like to know. I think much more about how we can make empowerment of youth, encouraging entrepreneurship, but most importantly, encouraging entrepreneurship that helps us address global challenges, which are collective, which can only be addressed with all of us on the same page, or at least moving towards the right direction. What we see today is that young people are definitely not just recipients, but our young people on today's panel are passionate about addressing our challenges, about helping communities become more impactful, nurturing them to dream big and also to follow their dreams in a more effective way. And it's that passion which matters the most. So what our audience today can think further is, how can you, in your individual capacities, think of young people playing a more important role? And how can we further scale these efforts and these initiatives, which our panel today has discussed? Of course, we will definitely have a round 2. But for now, for today, we conclude the conversation, but our dialogue will continue. So thank you so much, Christy, Victoria, Bima, Wahid. We will continue discussing the role of youth another time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. You are so good. I wish we were doing this in person, but this was amazing.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
How was
Sorry.
it? How many minutes was it? It was an hour. More than.
Yeah, it was an hour.